Okay, so today we're taking a deep dive into project management,
Uh-huh.
specifically for creative services project managers at Nike.
Okay.
And we're going really deep,
Sounds good.
expert level deep,
All right.
into all 49 processes from the PMBOK Guide 7th edition
Uh,
and the Agile Practice Guide.
all right.
And we're going to be looking at all of those processes through the lens of a hybrid approach,
Interesting.
which blends predictive and agile methodologies.
Okay.
We'll unpack each process,
Right.
talk about the inputs and outputs, and we won't be skipping a single thing.
That sounds very thorough.
It's going to be intense.
I'm ready.
I'm excited.
I think this is really fascinating how these project management principles that are kind of universal, you can apply them in any industry,
Right.
can be tailored to fit such a dynamic and creative environment like Nike.
Yeah.
Think about how these processes would play out when you're talking about
Yeah.
high stakes ad campaigns and athlete endorsements.
Yeah.
And, constantly pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
Right. It's like taking a precision tool and customizing it to craft something.
Yeah,
That's really unique and groundbreaking.
I like that.
So let's kind of set the scene.
Okay.
Imagine you're at Nike.
Okay.
You're a creative services project manager.
Mm-hmm.
You're juggling tight deadlines,
Right.
demanding stakeholders,
Of course.
and that constant pressure to deliver work
Yeah.
that not only meets Nike's famous quality standards,
Right.
but also perfectly aligns with their business objectives and strategies.
It's a lot,
It's a lot.
but it's also very exciting.
Oh, yeah. It's an amazing opportunity.
Uh-huh.
And then you've got Nike's internal environment to
Right.
navigate. Think
Yeah.
about their organizational structure,
Yeah.
their culture of, high performance,
Definitely.
and those massive knowledge repositories that they probably have,
I bet.
packed with insights from, thousands of projects.
Years and years of experience.
Years and years of experience.
All right.
And let's not forget about their probably really strict vendor lists and contract types
Mm-hmm.
for creative services.
Yeah, I bet they have long-standing relationships with all the top-tier agencies and production studios,
Exactly.
which can definitely influence how you execute a project.
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so with all that in mind, all that Nike context in mind,
Okay.
let's get into those 49 processes.
All right.
We're going to walk through all 5 process groups:
Okay.
initiating planning, executing monitoring, and controlling, and closing.
Got it.
And we're going to be so meticulous
Okay.
about covering every single input and output.
Thorough.
Think of this as your master class in applying the PMBOK guide
I like it.
at an expert level within a creative powerhouse like Nike.
All right. Are you ready to get started?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's kick things off with initiating.
Okay.
This is where you lay the foundation for the entire project.
The groundwork.
Yeah, and it all starts with developing the project charter, which
Right.
is basically like your project's birth certificate.
I like that.
And at Nike, that project charter is going to be really heavily influenced by the sponsor's vision.
Yeah, they're probably pretty hands-on.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Uh-huh.
And the early involvement of the project manager,
Makes sense.
right from the start,
Yep.
you're defining the project's purpose,
Mm-hmm.
objectives, high-level requirements, and key deliverables.
Right.
You're setting the stage.
Yeah.
And those initial inputs are so crucial.
Okay.
We're talking about the business documents that outline the strategic need,
Uh-huh.
any agreements with stakeholders,
Right.
and all those internal and external factors that might impact the project.
Okay, so we're thinking big picture from the start.
Big picture, big picture.
What's the why behind this project?
Exactly.
Is it launching a new product line,
Yeah,
amplifying a social cause, or maybe disrupting the entire market with a crazy new campaign?
totally.
All of those business documents that we have at the start really provide that crucial context.
That crucial context. And let's not forget about those organizational process assets.
Right.
Nike has got tons of historical data on similar projects,
Oh, yeah.
lessons learned.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe they even have templates
Right.
for project charters.
I bet they do.
That could be invaluable at this stage.
Yeah, imagine tapping into the collective wisdom of countless successful Nike projects.
It's an advantage.
That's a huge advantage, for sure.
For sure. So the output of all of this
Okay.
is a fully formed project charter,
Right.
officially greenlighting your project.
It's like getting the official nod from Nike's leadership.
Exactly. Like go
Oh,
forth and create.
Make us proud.
Right.
Yeah.
But initiating is not just about the charter, right?
What else is there?
We also need to identify all the stakeholders.
Of course.
And I bet that list can get pretty long at a company like Nike.
Yeah, you're not kidding. It's not just, your internal team in the marketing department.
Right.
You've got to think about everyone who has like a vested interest in this project's success.
Yeah.
Athletes, influencers, legal teams, agencies, production studios.
Wow.
And even the consumers themselves.
That's a lot of people.
It's a whole ecosystem.
It's like mapping out an entire ecosystem.
Exactly. And it's not just about, getting their names on a list.
Yeah.
It's about really understanding their influence,
Yeah.
their expectations, and how they might impact your project.
Okay, so how do you manage all those stakeholders, especially at a company like Nike?
Uh-huh.
You've got big personalities,
Yeah.
high expectations, and probably a lot of strong opinions.
Definitely you need a strategic approach.
Okay.
You need to use tools like stakeholder analysis,
Uh-huh.
power interest grids,
Okay.
communication models to really map out their needs,
Yeah.
and develop an effective engagement strategy.
Okay.
Imagine creating a communication plan
Yeah.
that caters to the specific needs of like athletes versus marketing executives versus the legal team.
That's a challenge.
It requires finesse, for sure.
So you're not just managing tasks, you're managing relationships and expectations,
You got it.
which is a whole other layer of complexity.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've got the project charter
Uh-huh.
and those stakeholders mapped out.
Okay.
What's next in this journey of, bringing a Nike project to life?
Now it's time for planning,
Okay,
where we get into all the nitty-gritty details.
right?
This is where we create the comprehensive project management plan
Okay.
that's meticulously tailored to the specific demands of a Nike Creative Services project.
I'm ready. Let's get organized.
All right, so
Yeah.
first,
Yeah.
we need to define exactly what we're going to do.
Okay.
That means outlining the scope, the schedule, the cost, the quality,
Mm-hmm.
the resources, the communication strategy, and any potential risks or procurement needs.
Okay.
This plan is our roadmap for success.
Right.
It guides every decision and action throughout the project lifecycle.
Yeah, it's got to be crystal clear, right?
Crystal clear.
Especially when it comes to the project scope.
Absolutely.
We need to define exactly what we're delivering.
Right.
What does success look like?
Uh-huh.
And what's explicitly not included.
To avoid scope creep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
To prevent that scope creep down the line.
Right. So let's say
Yeah.
you're developing a new ad campaign for a revolutionary running shoe.
Okay.
Your scope would define those specific deliverables,
Uh-huh.
the video assets, the social media graphics, even the tagline.
Okay.
You'd outline acceptance criteria,
Yeah.
meeting brand guidelines, ensuring cultural sensitivity,
Yeah.
aligning with Nike's overall marketing message,
Mm-hmm.
and just as important,
Yeah.
you would define what's outside the scope.
To keep everybody focused.
Right. So if the campaign is focused on performance,
Yeah.
we're not suddenly going to start creating lifestyle content.
Right.
That's not part of the scope.
That keeps everyone laser focused
Exactly.
on the core objectives.
Right.
Okay, so to make this planning process more manageable.
Yeah, it can get pretty complicated,
Oh, yeah.
especially at Nike.
We use a work breakdown structure, or a WBS.
Okay.
It's about breaking those big, complex deliverables down into smaller pieces.
Makes sense.
So instead of looking at, a massive campaign as a whole,
Right.
we break it down into phases like concept development, design production,
Mm-hmm.
and launch.
Okay.
And then you break those phases down
Right.
even further into individual tasks,
Got it.
right?
Like a family tree.
Yeah, it's like a family tree for your project.
I like that.
And it shows how each piece connects to the bigger picture.
Okay.
So speaking of staying organized,
Uh-huh.
let's not forget about risk management.
Of course.
This is huge,
Especially at a company like Nike.
right? The stakes are so high.
Oh.
We need to be proactive about identifying those potential threats,
Like what?
like production delays,
Mm-hmm.
talent availability issues,
Right.
or even a PR crisis.
Oh, yeah. You got to think about all of that.
We need to be ready for anything.
Right. Anticipate the unexpected.
Exactly.
So imagine the athlete that you got to endorse your new shoe
yeah.
gets injured right before the campaign launches.
Oh, no.
You need a backup plan.
You need a plan B.
Yeah.
But risk management isn't just about avoiding disaster,
Yeah.
right?
What else is there?
We also need to identify opportunities
Yeah.
to, capitalize on them.
What if this campaign goes viral,
Yeah.
generates tons of positive buzz?
That would be amazing.
Could become a cultural phenomenon.
Right.
That's what we want.
Exactly.
Right? So a well-crafted risk management plan helps you capitalize on those opportunities as well.
Okay, so all those potential threats and opportunities,
Yeah.
they're all going to live in the risk register.
That's our project's early warning system.
Exactly. It's like the project's, early warning system.
It tracks each risk, its potential impact, who's responsible, and your planned response. It's a living document. As the project progresses and new information surfaces, you update the risk register.
So we're not just planning for what we know, we're preparing for what we don't know.
Exactly.
Which is really hard to do.
It's a challenge.
It's a challenge.
But it's essential.
Okay, so we covered a lot of ground in planning.
We did.
Huh.
What's next? Now it's time for executing.
Okay.
Where we put all these plans into action.
We're actually doing the work.
We're doing the work.
This is where the project manager really shines.
Right.
Leading the team, coordinating all the moving parts,
Keeping everything on track.
making sure the vision becomes a reality.
Yes.
So what are the key aspects of executing at a company like Nike?
So one of the first things you're going to do is acquire the resources you need
Right.
to bring those creative visions to life.
Okay.
So we're talking about those designers,
Yeah.
copywriters, photographers, directors, editors.
The talent.
The talent, exactly.
Yeah.
And those production studios.
And luckily at Nike,
Yeah.
you've got those pre-approved vendor lists.
Makes things a little bit easier.
A little bit easier.
Yeah.
But securing the resources is just the first step.
Right.
It's equally important to nurture those resources,
Okay.
to provide training coaching, and foster a collaborative environment.
Where everyone can do their best work.
Right, because at Nike, it's not just about hitting deadlines.
Right.
It's about fostering a culture of creativity and innovation.
Exactly.
So while the team's doing all that amazing work,
Yeah.
we can't forget about stakeholder communications.
Definitely not.
Keeping everyone informed, engaged, and on board.
Essential.
It's essential, especially in a fast-paced, high-stakes environment like Nike.
Sure.
And it's not just about pushing information outright.
What else is there?
It's about actively listening, seeking feedback, and addressing concerns.
Right, because you've got all those strong voices
Yeah.
and diverse perspectives at Nike.
It's a lot to manage.
It is.
So what kind of communication methods would you use?
It's a fix.
Yeah.
We're talking regular status reports,
Uh-huh.
presentations meetings, informal updates.
Okay.
And you got to tailor the style and the methods to each stakeholder group.
Right.
So you might give the marketing team a data-driven presentation,
Uh-huh.
but you give the athletes more of like a visual, informal update.
Right.
You got to know your audience.
And tailor your approach.
Exactly.
So we've planned meticulously.
Uh-huh.
We assembled the dream team.
Okay.
We're keeping everyone informed.
Got it.
But how do we know
Yeah.
if we're on track?
That's a great question. That's where monitoring and controlling comes in.
Okay.
This is where we keep our finger on the pulse of the project,
Okay.
making sure that we are hitting our goals,
Okay.
constantly monitoring performance against the baselines
Uh-huh.
established in the plan,
So we're talking about,
scope, schedule, cost.
okay, so we're collecting data,
Yep.
analyzing metrics, generating reports,
Uh-huh.
identifying any variances from the plan.
Exactly.
And then we take action to get back on course.
Correct. Those variances.
Yes.
Get back on track.
And one area that is so crucial for a creative services project manager at Nike is quality control.
Oh, of course.
I mean, we're talking about making sure that every single deliverable
Yep.
meets Nike's famously high standards.
Right.
Everything has to be perfect,
It does.
from the stitching on a shoe to the lighting in a photo shoot.
Every detail matters.
How do you ensure that level of quality control?
Well, it's about incorporating
Yeah.
meticulous reviews, rigorous testing,
Okay.
and continuous feedback loops.
So there's design reviews
Yes.
where the creative directors are like scrutinizing every single pixel.
Absolutely.
Those product tests where athletes are, putting a shoe through its paces and providing feedback.
It's about striving for perfection
Yeah.
and then pushing even further.
But quality is not the only thing we're controlling.
Right.
We've also got to keep a close eye on costs.
You bet.
We're tracking those actual expenses against the budget,
Looking for any overruns?
right? Or potential savings.
Yeah.
And we're figuring out how to manage any variances.
Right.
Because even at a company like Nike, Resources aren't unlimited.
No, they're not.
We need to be responsible
Absolutely.
for that budget.
Make sure every dollar delivers value.
Yeah.
Maximum value.
Okay. And while we're monitoring those budgets,
Uh-huh.
can't forget about risk management.
Of course not.
It's not just those initial risks that we identified in the planning stage.
Right.
Things change.
Things change constantly.
Priorities shift.
Uh-huh.
Unexpected challenges always seem to pop up,
Especially in the creative world.
especially in the world of creative services.
You got it.
So we're always adapting and responding.
That might mean adjusting your plan response,
Ah,
developing new mitigation strategies,
okay.
or even reassessing your overall risk tolerance. Flexibility is key.
So speaking of changing circumstances,
Yes.
we need to talk about managing change.
Okay.
Because even with the best planning, things rarely go exactly according to plan.
It's true.
So how do we handle those curveballs?
This is where the perform integrated change control process comes in.
Okay.
Making sure any changes
Yeah.
to the scope, schedule, or budget are carefully evaluated,
Okay.
approved,
Okay.
and documented.
Okay.
And at Nike, this is especially important because of those high stakes
Right.
and the potential for a project to impact the brand.
It's a big deal.
It's a big deal.
We're talking about establishing a clear change control board,
Yeah.
defining roles and responsibilities,
Uh-huh.
using change request forms,
Right?
and keeping meticulous records of every change.
So imagine
Okay.
you're working on this groundbreaking ad campaign
Okay.
featuring a global superstar,
All right.
and a last-minute change request comes in.
Oh.
Maybe there's a shift in the marketing strategy. Okay. Or the athlete has some feedback.
Okay.
You need a system in place to assess the impact of that change.
So you don't just automatically say yes.
No.
You got to evaluate it.
You got to evaluate it,
Okay.
make an informed decision,
Okay.
and keep the project aligned with Nike's overall goals.
Right. It's about striking that balance
Yes.
between creativity and control.
Exactly.
You've got to have both.
You need both.
Okay, so we've initiated,
Mm-hmm.
we've planned,
Yeah.
we've executed,
Right.
we've monitored and controlled.
Okay.
What's the final step in this Nike project journey?
We close it out.
Okay.
This is where we tie up those loose ends,
Oh.
get that formal acceptance of the deliverables,
Uh-huh.
and document those lessons learned.
Yeah.
Celebrate those wins.
Recognize everyone's contribution.
Absolutely.
Make sure Nike can learn
Yeah.
from those successes.
And build on them.
Build on them for future projects.
Exactly.
So we've covered all 5 process groups. We have.
At a high level.
Uh-huh.
But now let's go deeper.
Okay.
Break down each individual process.
Okay.
Starting with the 2 key processes in initiating.
Okay.
Develop project charter
Uh-huh.
and identify stakeholders.
Got it.
Let's get granular.
Right.
What are those specific inputs
Okay.
that feed into developing that all-important project charter?
So first we need a clear understanding
Okay.
of the business need
Uh-huh.
or opportunity that's driving the project.
Okay, so understanding the why behind the project.
Exactly.
The strategic goals and objectives
Precise.
that are driving this creative endeavor.
Right. So this could be a business case.
Okay.
That outlines the need for a new marketing campaign to reach a younger demographic,
Okay.
or a strategic plan detailing Nike's commitment to sustainability.
Which could lead to...
A project
Yeah.
focused on eco-friendly product development.
Right. Okay, so then what?
Then we look at any agreements.
Okay. Contracts, memorandums of understanding, service-level agreements
Okay.
that might impact the project.
Okay.
These could be internal agreements within Nike, perhaps between different departments collaborating,
Okay.
or external agreements with partners or vendors.
So from the start, we're establishing clear boundaries,
Right?
setting those expectations
That's right.
internally and externally.
Exactly.
Okay. And we can't forget about those enterprise environmental factors.
Of course not.
All those external and internal influences
Yes.
that can affect our project.
Think about Nike's organizational structure, their risk tolerance,
Yeah.
existing infrastructure, even their iconic culture.
All of that can shape
It can.
the way you approach the project.
Yeah, imagine the difference between managing a project at Nike's headquarters
Yeah.
in Oregon and managing a project in one of their global offices.
Totally different.
Very different.
Yeah.
You've got to understand those cultural nuances.
Right.
Adapt your approach.
So then you've got your organizational process assets.
Okay.
These are the internal resources
Uh-huh.
and best practices.
Right.
They can help you develop that solid project charter.
So we're talking about Nike's vast knowledge base.
Yeah.
historical data on similar projects, lessons learned, templates, guidelines.
Anything that can help you get started.
Kickstart the project on the right foot.
Yeah,
Nike has probably run thousands of successful creative projects.
I bet.
Tapping into that knowledge can be a huge advantage.
Huge advantage.
For sure.
Okay, so with all of those inputs,
Yes.
the business documents,
Uh-huh.
the agreements,
Yeah.
enterprise environmental factors,
Yeah.
organizational process assets,
What do we get?
we get the project charter,
The official document.
the official document.
That sets the project in motion.
It's the green light from the stakeholders
It is.
outlining the purpose,
Uh-huh.
the objectives, high-level requirements, and key deliverables.
Like a crucial document.
So that project charter is like our compass,
I like that.
guiding us through the world of Nike project management.
Sets the course.
Yeah.
Keeps us aligned.
Okay, so that was develop project charter,
Right?
the first step in initiating our Nike project.
Uh-huh.
Now let's dive into the second process. Identify stakeholders.
Okay.
We're going to figure out who all the players are in this Nike project.
This is where it gets really interesting.
Okay?
Because Nike has such a vast network of stakeholders.
Right.
You've got your internal stakeholders,
Uh-huh.
the marketing team, those creative visionaries,
The brand manager.
the legal team, the finance folks,
Anyone inside Nike with a vested interest.
anyone within Nike
Yeah.
who has a vested interest in this project's success.
And they can be a force to be reckoned with.
They can.
Yeah,
They're passionate about the brand,
they are.
driven to succeed.
Uh-huh.
They're not afraid to voice their opinions.
That's for sure.
They understand the nuances of the brand and the market. And then we have our external stakeholders,
Okay.
the agencies, the production companies,
Okay.
the athletes, the influencers, the media outlets,
Wow.
and ultimately the consumers themselves,
It's a whole constellation of people,
interconnected players.
all contributing to that project's success.
Exactly, and identifying them is just the
Mhm.
first step.
Okay.
We also need to analyze their influence, their expectations, their communication styles, and their potential impact on the project.
So you're not just creating a list, you're building a stakeholder map.
A stakeholder map.
Understanding their motivations, their needs, and how best to engage with them.
You got it.
And what are the outputs of this process?
The stakeholder register
Okay.
and the stakeholder engagement plan.
Okay. Let's break those down. First, the stakeholder register.
Right.
What is that?
It's your comprehensive database of everyone involved.
Okay.
Includes their names, roles, contact information,
Okay.
their level of interest in the project, their influence, their expectations, any known issues or concerns.
So it's like your stakeholder playbook.
It is.
It helps you understand who's who
Exactly.
in this project landscape.
And then you've got your stakeholder engagement plan.
Okay.
This outlines your strategy
Okay.
for communicating with
Uh-huh.
and managing those stakeholders.
Okay, so this is our roadmap for keeping everyone informed and engaged and on board
And happy,
and happy, hopefully.
ideally.
And at Nike, that's especially important.
It is.
You've got to navigate those complex relationships.
You do.
Make sure everyone feels heard and respected.
Absolutely.
Fostering those relationships, making sure everyone's voice is heard. Because at Nike, collaboration is key.
Collaboration is key.
Okay.
Now that we've covered those two key processes in initiating, develop project charter and identify stakeholders,
Okay.
let's move on to the planning process group,
All right.
where we'll create that comprehensive roadmap
Yes.
for our Nike project.
I'm ready to get into those details. Planning is where we turn those creative visions
Yeah,
into those concrete action plans.
you're right.
Yeah.
It's about turning those dreams into a reality.
And in planning, we meticulously craft that all-important project management plan,
Yes.
tailoring it to the unique needs of a Nike Creative Services project.
It is our blueprint
It's the guide.
for success.
Yeah.
The guiding force behind every decision
Okay.
and action.
It's like building the foundation for a skyscraper.
Yeah,
You got to get those plans right from the start.
we have to get those plans right.
So where do we begin?
We start by understanding
Okay.
how we'll manage the scope.
All right.
That's where plan scope management comes in.
Okay.
We're laying the groundwork for defining, managing, and controlling the project scope.
Making sure we deliver what we promised and nothing more, nothing less,
Precision is key.
especially at Nike,
Yes, especially at Nike.
where those projects can get pretty complex.
Very complex.
So what are the key inputs that feed into this plan scope management process?
First, we consider the project charter.
Okay.
which provides that initial high-level view of the project scope and objectives.
Yep.
We also need to look at the project management plan, especially any existing components like the schedule management plan or the cost management plan.
So making sure that our approach to scope management aligns with the overall project timeline and budget.
Exactly.
It's about seeing the big picture.
Yes, seeing the big picture.
And then we delve into those project documents.
Okay.
This could include the requirements documentation,
Uh-huh.
the assumption log, any relevant lessons learned from previous projects, and the stakeholder register
So we're gathering insights
from various sources,
of various sources.
including the voices of those key stakeholders,
Exactly.
to inform our scope management approach.
Right. And we also need to consider those enterprise environmental factors
Yeah.
and organizational process assets.
Okay, so things like
Nike's organizational structure,
yeah.
their risk tolerance,
Okay.
their established processes
Okay.
for managing scope creep,
Yeah, to prevent that scope creep.
and their historical data
Uh-huh.
on similar projects.
Okay, so we're tapping into Nike's wealth of experience,
We are.
leveraging their knowledge and best practices to guide our scope management approach.
Absolutely.
Okay, so with all of those inputs considered,
Yeah.
we develop the scope management plan.
Our guide for defining, developing, monitoring, controlling, and validating the project scope.
It's our scope management playbook.
It is a great way to put it.
It helps us prevent scope creep, manage those stakeholder expectations, and ensure that the project stays laser-focused
Laser focus.
on achieving those clearly defined objectives.
Okay, so plan scope management
Yeah.
sets the stage for keeping our project on track.
But how do we gather those detailed needs and expectations that will shape the project deliverables?
That's where collect requirements comes in.
Okay.
This is where we gather those detailed needs, expectations, and constraints
Okay.
that will shape the project deliverables.
So it's like conducting an investigation,
It is.
piecing together all those pieces of the puzzle
Right.
to figure out exactly what needs to be created.
Exactly.
And this is a critical process
It is.
for a creative services project manager at Nike.
Right.
You're dealing with a lot of stakeholders,
A lot of stakeholders.
each with their own vision,
Yes.
their own priorities, and their own interpretation of what success looks like.
You nailed it.
So what are the key inputs
Okay.
that feed into this process of gathering requirements?
Well, we start with the project charter,
Okay.
which provides that high-level overview of the project's purpose and objectives.
Yep.
Then we look at the project management plan, especially that scope management plan we just discussed.
Okay. So we're making sure our approach to gathering requirements aligns with our overall strategy for managing scope.
Consistency and alignment. Very important.
And then we dive into those project documents,
Yeah.
the stakeholder register, the assumption log,
Yes.
any existing requirements, documentation, and of course the lessons learned register.
We are learning from the past,
Learning from the past,
taking those valuable insights.
applying them to the present.
Absolutely.
And we can't forget about those enterprise environmental factors
Yeah.
and organizational process assets,
Right.
which can significantly influence our approach to gathering requirements.
Think about Nike's organizational culture. Their established processes for gathering requirements, their historical data on similar projects, and their knowledge repositories.
So much information to tap into.
We're building on a foundation of success.
We're not starting from scratch.
We're not.
Okay, so to effectively gather these requirements,
Yeah.
we need to use a variety of tools and techniques.
We do.
Like what?
Brainstorming sessions.
Okay.
Interviews, focus groups, surveys, prototyping, and even data analysis techniques.
So using a mix of creative and analytical approaches
Absolutely.
to uncover those hidden needs and make sure we're capturing a complete and accurate picture
Exactly.
of what's required.
The output of all of this is
Yeah.
the requirements documentation.
Okay.
This is a clear and concise record
Okay.
of all those collected requirements,
Yeah.
their priority, their source,
Uh-huh.
and their acceptance criteria.
It's like our wish list for the project,
It is.
detailing everything we need to create
Right.
to fulfill those stakeholder expectations.
And remember, it's a living document.
It can change.
As we gain more information, we refine our understanding
Okay.
of what's needed.
So we've collected the requirements, but now we need to turn those wishes
Yes.
into a concrete definition
Okay.
of what we're actually building.
That's where defined scope comes in.
Okay.
We're taking those gathered requirements
Yeah.
and transforming them
Okay.
into a detailed description of the project deliverables,
Okay.
boundaries,
Fine.
what's included, and what's explicitly excluded.
So we're drawing a line in the sand,
We are,
making it crystal clear what's in scope and what's out of scope.
to prevent those dreaded scope creeps.
Scope creep is the enemy.
It is.
And manage those stakeholder expectations.
Very important.
Okay, so let's imagine we're developing a mobile app for Nike.
Okay.
Defining the scope means outlining those specific features.
Right, like the activity tracking, social sharing.
Integration with wearable tech.
Exactly.
Okay.
We'd clarify acceptance criteria,
Okay.
seamless user experience,
Okay.
compatibility with different devices, adherence to Nike's design principles.
And just as important,
We'd specify it.
what's not included.
What's not included.
So if the app focuses on running, we wouldn't suddenly start adding features
No.
for basketball or swimming.
Right, we're staying focused
Get in your lane.
on that core functionality.
Right.
That clarity is crucial
Yeah.
for preventing scope creep
Okay.
and keeping the project
Aligned.
aligned
Okay.
with those initial objectives.
Okay. So to define the scope effectively, we need to consider.
The project charter,
Okay.
the project management plan,
Uh-huh.
and that all-important requirements documentation.
So building on that foundation that we've already established.
Yes.
Right.
Making sure our scope definition aligns with the project's overall goals
Right.
and the gathered requirements.
And those enterprise environmental factors.
Of course.
And organizational process assets.
They always come into play.
They always do.
Think about Nike's organizational culture.
Okay.
Their established processes for defining scope, their historical data on similar projects, and their knowledge repositories.
So much information.
A wealth of information.
Yeah.
We're not reinventing the wheel.
Right. We're learning from those who came before.
Exactly.
So to define scope, effectively we'll utilize various tools and techniques.
We'll consider expert judgment,
Uh-huh.
data analysis,
Okay.
alternative analysis,
Okay.
and product analysis.
So it's about gathering information, analyzing options, and making informed decisions about what's in and what's out.
Precisely.
And the output of this is the project scope statement.
Right. A detailed
It's the document,
and comprehensive
the Bible.
description
Yeah.
of the deliverables,
Okay.
acceptance criteria, exclusions,
Uh-huh.
and any constraints.
It's the reference point
It is.
for any questions or discussions
Right.
about what's included in the project or what's not included in the project.
A well-crafted project scope statement prevents misunderstandings,
Okay.
manages expectations,
Yeah.
ensures that everyone involved in the project
Is on the same page
is on the same page.
about what we're trying to achieve.
Right.
So defined scope provides that blueprint.
That detailed blueprint
Yeah.
for our project.
But now we need to break it down
Yes.
into manageable chunks.
That's where Create WBS comes into play.
Okay.
We're taking that project scope statement,
Yeah.
decomposing it into smaller,
Okay.
more manageable components,
Right.
creating that hierarchical structure,
Yes.
visual representation of all the work
Okay.
needed.
It's like taking a complex machine,
It is.
breaking it down into its parts,
Yeah.
and figuring out how they all fit together.
Like a giant jigsaw puzzle,
Yeah.
making sure all the pieces fit together.
To create that complete picture.
Exactly.
And that well-structured WBS is essential
It is essential.
for effective project management.
Right.
It brings clarity,
Holy.
transparency,
Transparent.
shared understanding of the work.
Absolutely.
So what are those key inputs
Right.
that feed into the creation of this WBS?
First, we have that detailed project scope statement.
Okay.
We also need the project management plan, particularly the scope management plan,
Okay.
to guide our approach.
So we're making sure our WBS aligns with our overall strategy for managing scope.
Maintaining consistency and alignment.
It's all connected.
It's all connected.
And those enterprise environmental factors and organizational process assets
Of course.
play a role.
Always.
Think about Nike's organizational structure.
Yeah.
Established processes for creating WBSs.
Mm-hmm.
Historical data on similar projects.
Right.
and those knowledge repositories.
So we're tapping into
All that experience.
Reiki's vast experience
Yeah,
in breaking down
breaking it down
those complex creative projects.
into manageable pieces.
Right.
They've been doing this for a long time.
They have.
They've got to have some effective strategy
I'm sure they do.
for creating WBSs.
Yes.
Okay, so to effectively create a WBS, we utilize.
Decomposition,
Okay,
expert judgment,
okay,
and templates or guidelines
okay.
from previous projects.
Okay, so it's about breaking down those big deliverables into smaller and smaller pieces.
Until we reach a level of detail
Uh-huh.
where we can easily plan
Manage the work.
and manage the
Yeah,
work,
yeah.
we're creating those bite-sized pieces
Yeah.
that make the project
Less overwhelming.
less overwhelming.
And what are the outputs of this process?
The WBS itself,
Okay.
that visual representation of
Yeah.
the project structure,
Okay.
and the WBS dictionary,
Okay.
which provides
Those details
detailed descriptions
about each
of each work package
work package.
in the WBS.
Okay, so the WBS is like the project's family tree.
I love that.
And the WBS dictionary is like the family photo album,
Yes.
providing those detailed stories about each family member.
I love these analogies.
Okay, so Create WBS gives us a roadmap for executing the project.
Right.
But how do we ensure
Uh-huh.
that we're delivering what we promised
Right.
and those stakeholders are happy with the results?
That's where Validate Scope comes in. Host, right? It can generate progress reports, track those variances, and forecast the project completion date, helping us stay on top of those ever-changing timelines.
So the key inputs for this control schedule process include the project management plan, the project schedule, work performance data, work performance reports, organizational process assets, and those enterprise environmental factors.
Exactly. And the key outputs.
Yeah.
We have work performance information, which provides updated information on the project's progress schedule forecasts, which predict the future project completion date change requests, which document those proposed schedule changes and updates to the project management plan and project documents.
So we're constantly monitoring, analyzing, adjusting, and documenting, making sure that the project schedule stays aligned with project goals and objectives.
Precisely. And a disciplined approach to schedule control is essential for delivering the project on time within budget and to the satisfaction of our stakeholders.
Okay, so we've covered all 6 schedule management processes. Plan schedule management, define activities, sequence activities, estimate activity durations, develop schedule, and control schedule. That's a lot of planning, but it's essential for setting the stage for successful project execution, especially in a fast-paced environment like Nike.
Absolutely. Now let's shift our focus to cost management. This is where we plan, estimate, budget, and control those project costs, making sure we deliver on budget and avoid those costly overruns.
And that's crucial for any project, but especially at a company like Nike, where those creative projects can involve significant investments. We're talking about big budgets, high-profile talent, and those cutting-edge production techniques.
You're right. Cost management is critical for ensuring that those creative visions are realized within those financial constraints. And the first process in cost management is plan cost management. This is where we establish those policies, procedures, and documentation for managing expending and controlling those project costs.
It's like creating the financial rule book for our project, setting those guidelines and establishing those controls to keep us on track.
Exactly. And the key inputs for this process include the project charter, which provides those initial cost constraints and funding information, the project management plan, particularly any existing components like the scope management plan or the schedule management plan, and those ever-present enterprise environmental factors and organizational process assets.
So we're considering things like Nike's organizational structure, their accounting practices, their historical data on similar projects, their cost management policies, and their risk tolerance. All those factors will influence how we plan and manage those project costs.
Right. It's about aligning our cost management approach with the specific context and culture of Nike.
And to effectively plan cost management, we'll use tools and techniques like expert judgment data analysis meetings and those analytical techniques.
It's about gathering information, analyzing options, and developing that solid plan for managing the project's budget.
And the key output of this process is the cost management plan. This document outlines how we'll estimate, budget manage, monitor, and control those project costs throughout the project lifecycle. It's like our financial roadmap for the project, guiding our decisions and actions to ensure that we stay within budget.
Precisely, a well-crafted cost management plan is essential for preventing those cost overruns, managing those stakeholder expectations, and ensuring that the project delivers that value for money.
Okay, so you've got the cost management plan in place. Now let's move on to estimate costs. This is where we figure out how much each activity is going to cost, a crucial step in building a realistic project budget.
Exactly. And it's about making those educated guesses about how much each activity will cost based on available information, historical data, expert judgment, and a bit of that creative intuition.
And in the context of a Nike creative project, this can be tricky, right? Creative work can be unpredictable. Those last-minute changes, those unexpected challenges, they can all impact those project costs.
Absolutely. Estimating costs for creative projects can be like trying to predict the weather. There's so many variables and things can change quickly. But even with those challenges, we still need to make those estimates. It's about being as realistic as possible to avoid setting those unrealistic expectations and creating a budget that's doomed to fail.
So what are those techniques for estimating project costs? How do we approach this challenge of balancing accuracy with flexibility?
Well, as always, we can tap into expert judgment, seeking insights from those seasoned professionals who have navigated those creative waters at Nike, those creative directors, producers, those who have seen it all.
At Nike, they have a wealth of experience to draw from, right?
Yeah.
They produce some of the most iconic campaigns and launch some of the most innovative products in the world.
Exactly. And then we can leverage analogous estimating. We can look at similar activities from past projects, maybe a previous ad campaign or product launch, and use those costs as a basis for estimating the current project.
So if Nike has run a similar campaign for a running shoe, we can analyze those costs and adjust for any differences in scope complexity or those market conditions we're learning from those past experiences.
Right. Then we have parametric estimating, which uses a statistical relationship between historical data and other variables to calculate those estimates. For example, we might use the number of scenes in a video to estimate the editing cost.
So if we know that it costs an average of $1,000 to edit one scene, and the Nike ad has 12 scenes, we can estimate that the editing will cost around $12,000.
Precisely. And then there's three-point estimating, a technique that embraces the uncertainty inherent in creative work. We develop three estimates, an optimistic estimate, a pessimistic estimate, and a most likely estimate, and then use a formula to calculate a weighted average.
So it's about considering the range of possible outcomes and coming up with a more realistic estimate that reflects those potential variations.
Exactly. And of course, we can use project management software to assist us with all of these estimating techniques.
So we have a toolbox full of techniques: expert judgment, analogous estimating, parametric estimating, three-point estimating, and project management software, all helping us to estimate those project costs. But what are the specific inputs that feed into this estimate costs process?
We need to consider the cost management plan, which guides our overall approach to estimating costs. We also need the scope baseline, the project schedule, the resource requirements, the risk register, and those all-important enterprise environmental factors and organizational process assets.
So we're taking a holistic view, considering the project scope, the schedule, those resources needed, those potential risks, and all those internal and external factors that might influence the cost of those activities.
Right. It's about understanding those interconnected elements and how they can impact the project budget.
And the key output of this process.
The cost estimates, we develop a detailed list of those estimated costs for each activity in the project, providing that granular view of where those dollars are going.
So we're starting to build a more realistic and detailed picture of the project budget, taking those cost estimates for each activity and rolling them up into an overall project budget.
That's where determined budget comes in. We aggregate those cost estimates and allocate those costs over time to create a time-phased budget. This shows how we'll be spending those funds throughout the project lifecycle.
And a well-developed project budget is essential, right? It's not just about having a number. It's about understanding the timing of those expenses, those cash flow projections, and making sure we have the funds available when we need them.
You're right. It provides a clear picture of how much the project will cost, when those costs will be incurred, and where those funds will be spent. It's an essential tool for effective financial management control and communication.
Okay, so what are the key inputs that feed into this determined budget process?
Well, we start with the cost management plan, which guides our approach to developing the budget. We also need the scope baseline, the project schedule, the resource calendars, the risk register, the agreements, and those enterprise environmental factors and organizational process assets.
We're considering things like Nike's funding policies, their accounting practices, their historical data on similar projects, their risk tolerance, and their contractual obligations. All of these factors can influence how we develop that project budget.
Exactly. It's about aligning our budget development process with the specific context and culture of Nike, and to effectively determine the budget we need to use a variety of tools and techniques like cost aggregation, reserve analysis, expert judgment, historical data funding, limit reconciliation, and of course, project management software.
So we're adding up those cost estimates, figuring out how much contingency reserve we need, that cushion for those unexpected expenses, and making sure that the budget aligns with Nike's funding policies and constraints.
Right, we're creating that financial plan that balances those creative visions with those financial realities.
What are the outputs of this process?
We have the cost baseline that approved time-phased budget for the project. We also have the project funding requirements, which outline how much funding will be needed and when. And we update the project documents, like the cost estimates the project schedule and the risk register to reflect the budget decisions.
So we're creating that comprehensive and detailed budget, a living document that will guide the project team, help us track those expenses effectively, and ensure that we stay within those financial boundaries.
Exactly. Now let's move on to control costs, the process that ensures we stay on track financially throughout the project. We monitor those project expenses against the cost baseline and manage any changes or deviations that inevitably arise.
It's about financial vigilance, making sure we're spending those dollars wisely and avoiding those costly overruns. And at Nike, where those creative projects can have significant budgets, this process is crucial.
Absolutely. It's about being proactive, identifying those potential cost overruns early on, and taking those corrective actions. And in the fast-paced world of creative projects where changes are frequent and those timelines are tight, this process is especially important.
So what are those key inputs that feed into this control costs process?
We start with the project management plan, particularly the cost management plan, which outlines our approach to controlling those costs. We also need the cost baseline, that time phase budget. We created work performance data, which provides information on the project's progress and how much we've spent so far, work performance reports, which offer more detailed analysis of the project's financial performance, and those enterprise environmental factors and organizational process assets.
So we're considering Nike's change management procedures, their accounting practices, their tolerance for cost, overruns their historical data on similar projects and their knowledge repositories. It's about understanding Nike's culture and their approach to financial management.
Right, we're aligning our approach to cost control with the specific context and expectations of Nike. And to effectively control those costs, we need to use a variety of tools and techniques like earned value management, which helps us assess the project's performance by integrating scope, schedule, and cost data. We also use forecasting techniques to predict future costs and identify potential overruns, and we leverage variance analysis and trend analysis to understand those deviations from the budget and identify those areas where we need to take corrective action.
So we're comparing those actual costs to those budgeted costs, looking for any overruns or savings, figuring out what's causing those deviations, and taking corrective actions to get back on track. It's about financial accountability and making sure we're delivering value for those invested dollars.
You got it. And what are the outputs of this control cost process?
Well, I imagine we have work performance information providing updated information on the project's financial performance. And I'm guessing we have cost forecasts, which predict that final project cost change requests, which document any proposed changes to the budget and updates the project management plan and project documents to reflect any approved budget changes.
Exactly. It's about constantly monitoring, analyzing, adjusting, and documenting. We're making sure that the project budget stays aligned with those project goals and objectives, ensuring that we're delivering that creative vision within those financial constraints.
Okay, that was a deep dive into cost management with all four processes: plan cost management, estimate costs, determine budget and control costs. Now let's move on to quality management, a critical area for any project, but especially for a brand like Nike, known for its commitment to excellence.
Absolutely. At Nike, quality is paramount. It's woven into the fabric of the brand. Every detail, from the materials used to the design aesthetics, needs to reflect Nike's dedication to delivering the best. So let's explore how we manage quality in a creative project at Nike, starting with plan quality management.
Okay, let's unpack plan quality management. What are the key inputs for this process? What information do we need to consider when planning for quality?
We start with the project charter, which outlines those high-level quality expectations and constraints. Then we look at the project management plan, including any existing components like the scope management plan or the risk management plan, to ensure our quality management approach aligns with those other areas. And of course, we consider those enterprise environmental factors and organizational process assets.
We're thinking about Nike's quality policies, their industry standards, their historical data on similar projects, their risk tolerance, and their customer feedback mechanisms. All of these factors will shape how we plan and manage quality for this project.
You're right. It's about understanding Nike's commitment to quality and how it translates into specific actions and decisions throughout the project and to effectively plan quality management. We utilize a variety of tools and techniques. We rely on expert judgment, gather and analyze data, make informed decisions, represent data visually, and hold those collaborative meetings to bring those diverse perspectives together.
So it's a multifaceted approach, combining those analytical tools with those collaborative techniques to develop a robust plan for ensuring quality.
Exactly. And the key output of this process is the quality management plan, which documents how we'll plan, manage, and control quality throughout the project lifecycle. It's our quality roadmap for the project, guiding our decisions and actions to ensure we meet those high Nike standards.
Okay, so plan quality management provides the framework,
hmm
but how do we actually put those plans into action? How do we ensure that those deliverables are meeting those quality standards?
That's where managed quality comes in. We translate those quality plans into tangible actions, implementing those processes and procedures to ensure the project deliverables meet the defined quality standards. It's about putting those plans into practice and making sure that quality is woven into every step of the process.
So it's not just about creating a plan, it's about actively managing quality throughout the project lifecycle.
Exactly. And the key inputs for this managed quality process include the project management plan, especially. That quality management plan project documents, like the lessons learned, register quality metrics, risk report, and test and evaluation documents, and those all important enterprise environmental factors and organizational process assets.
We're considering Nike's quality standards, their industry best practices, their historical data on similar projects, their risk tolerance, and their continuous improvement initiatives. All these factors will influence how we manage quality for this project.
You're right. It's about aligning our quality management approach with Nike's culture and their commitment to excellence to manage quality effectively. We use tools like data analysis, quality audits, process analysis, and design for X.
Okay, let's break those down. Data analysis might involve using techniques like root cause analysis to identify and address the underlying causes of any quality issues. Quality audits assess whether we're following those established processes and procedures. Making sure we're sticking to the plan process analysis helps us identify ways to improve those processes and prevent those defects. And Design for X is a set of technical guidelines aimed at optimizing a specific aspect of the product, like its manufacturability, reliability, or maintainability.
Exactly. We're using a combination of analytical and process-oriented tools to ensure that we're building quality into every aspect of the project. And what are the outputs of this managed quality process?
Well, I imagine we have quality reports documenting the results of our quality management activities. And I'm guessing we have test and evaluation documents which provide those results of any tests or inspections we conduct. Change requests documenting any proposed changes to the project or product to improve quality, and updates to the project management plan and project documents to reflect any lessons learned or process improvements.
Precisely, it's about constantly monitoring, analyzing, adjusting, and documenting, ensuring that the project stays focused on delivering those high-quality results.
So, managed quality ensures that we're building things right.
Mhm.
But how do we confirm that we've built the right thing? How do we make absolutely sure those deliverables meet those quality standards and those acceptance criteria?
That's where control quality comes in.
Yeah.
This is where we formally inspect and verify those project deliverables, making sure they meet those defined quality standards and those acceptance criteria. It's about that final check, making sure that we're delivering what we promised and that those stakeholders are thrilled with the results. And in the context of Nike, where quality and brand image are everything, this process is especially crucial.
Absolutely. It's about making sure that every detail, every stitch, every pixel reflects Nike's commitment to excellence.
Exactly. So what are the key inputs that feed into control quality?
Well, we definitely need the project management plan, particularly the quality management plan, outlining our approach to controlling quality. We also need those quality metrics, the work performance data, which tells us how the work was executed, and those proved change requests that might affect the project deliverables.
Right. We're gathering all the relevant information, what was built, how it was built, and whether it meets those defined quality standards. We're leaving no stone unturned.
And we also need to consider those enterprise environmental factors and organizational process assets. Think about Nike's quality standards, their acceptance criteria, their established processes for reviewing deliverables, and their knowledge repositories.
Absolutely. We're making sure that our approach to controlling quality aligns with Nike's overall quality expectations and those stringent brand guidelines. And to effectively control quality, we use a variety of tools and techniques, including inspection, measuring, and testing.
So inspection involves physically examining those deliverables, looking for any defects or inconsistencies. Measuring involves collecting data on the deliverables to assess their conformance to those specifications. And testing involves subjecting the deliverables to various tests to verify their functionality, performance, and reliability.
It's about using the right tools for the job, ensuring that every deliverable is thoroughly vetted and meets those high standards.
And what are the outputs of this control quality process?
We have verified deliverables, those that have passed inspection and testing work performance information, which provides updated information on the project's progress and any lessons learned during the quality control process, and change requests, which document any proposed changes to the project or product to address those quality issues.
So it's not just about checking those boxes. It's about
Yeah.
capturing those lessons learned, identifying areas for improvement, and making sure those insights are incorporated into future projects.
Right. It's about continuous improvement, always striving to deliver higher quality and exceed those expectations.
Okay, so we've covered the three core processes in quality management: plan, quality management, manage quality, and control quality. These processes ensure that our project delivers not only on time and within budget, but also to the highest standards of quality, reflecting Nike's commitment to excellence.
Well said. Now let's shift our focus to resource management, where we explore how to build and manage those high performing teams that drive creative success at Nike.
And that's a critical aspect, right? Nike is known for its incredible talent, those athletes, designers, marketers, and innovators who push those boundaries and inspire the world.
Absolutely. Talent is the heart and soul of Nike. So let's dive into the first process in resource management. Plan resource management. This is where we establish the policies, procedures, and documentation for planning, managing, and developing those project resources.
Okay, so what are the key inputs that feed into plan resource management? What factors do we need to consider when planning how we'll acquire, develop, and manage those project resources?
Well, we begin with the project charter, which provides a high-level overview of the project and any resource constraints or assumptions. Then we examine the project management plan, including any existing components like the scope management plan or the schedule management plan to ensure our resource management approach aligns with those other areas. And of course, we consider those enterprise environmental factors and organizational process assets.
We're thinking about Nike's organizational structure, their human resources policies, their incredible talent pool, their historical data on similar projects, and their team building practices. All of these elements will influence how we plan and manage those resources for this project.
You're spot on. It's about understanding Nike's unique context, their culture, and their approach to talent management and to effectively plan resource management. We need to use a variety of tools and techniques like expert judgment, data representation, organizational theory, and collaborative meetings.
So it's about gathering insights, understanding the organization's resources and capabilities, and developing a solid plan for acquiring, developing, and managing the project team.
Exactly. And the key output of this process is the resource management plan. This document outlines how we'll identify, acquire, develop, and manage the resources needed for the project. It's our talent roadmap guiding those decisions and actions to ensure we have the right people in the right roles at the right time.
It's like assembling that all-star team, bringing together the best talent to achieve those project goals.
Precisely. And a well-crafted resource management plan is essential for building those high-performing teams, optimizing resource utilization, and minimizing those conflicts or bottlenecks related to staffing.
Okay, so we've got that resource management plan in place now. How do we determine the specific types and quantities of resources needed for each activity of the project?
That's where estimate activity resources comes in. This is where we translate those project activities into those specific resource requirements. We consider the complexity of the work, the skills required, and the availability of those resources within Nike or through those external partners. It's like creating a detailed shopping list for talent, making sure we have all the ingredients we need to cook up a creative masterpiece.
And for a Nike creative project, this could involve identifying the need for graphic designers, copywriters, art directors, photographers, videographers, editors, producers, social media experts, and maybe even athletes or influencers. It's a diverse mix of talent.
Exactly. It's about understanding the unique blend of skills and expertise needed to bring that creative vision to life. And the key inputs for this estimate activity resources process include the project management plan, the scope baseline, the activity list, the activity attributes, the resource calendars, the risk register, and those ever-present enterprise environmental factors and organizational process assets.
So we're considering Nike's talent pool, their budget constraints, their historical data on similar projects, their risk tolerance, and their vendor relationships. All these factors will shape our resource estimates.
You're right. It's about being realistic, understanding the constraints, and finding creative ways to secure the talent we need to effectively estimate those activity resources. We use tools like expert judgment, bottom up estimating, analogous estimating, parametric estimating, and project management software.
It's like a puzzle, fitting those pieces together to create a complete picture of our resource needs and what are the outputs of this process.
We have the activity resource requirements, a detailed breakdown of the resources needed for each activity, and the resource breakdown structure, which organizes those resources by category or type. We also update those activity attributes to reflect those resource assignments.
So we've created that detailed talent roster now. How do we go about actually securing those resources?
That's where Acquire Resources comes in. It's about making those phone calls, sending those emails, negotiating those contracts, and assembling that dream team. It's about making sure we have the right people with the right skills and the right roles at the right time.
And at Nike, this might involve working with their internal HR department, negotiating with those preferred vendors, and leveraging their relationships with those top-tier creative agencies. It's about using all those available channels to find the best talent.
Exactly. And the key inputs for this Acquire Resources process include the project management plan, particularly the resource management plan, those project documents like the requirements documentation, the risk register, and the stakeholder register, the agreements, and those enterprise environmental factors and organizational process
We're
assets.
considering Nike's organizational structure, their procurement policies, their human resources practices, their budget constraints, and their relationships with those external partners. All those factors will influence how we acquire those resources.
You're right. It's about understanding the rules of the game and playing strategically to assemble the best possible team to effectively acquire those resources. We use a variety of tools and techniques. We leverage pre-assignment if resources have already been allocated to the project negotiation to secure those external resources or internal resources from other departments and virtual teams if our team members are geographically dispersed. We also use multi-criteria decision analysis to evaluate potential resources based on a set of criteria. And of course, those interpersonal and team skills are essential for building those relationships, persuading those stakeholders, and creating that positive team dynamic.
So we're not just filling roles, we're building a group of talented individuals who can work together effectively to achieve those shared goals.
Precisely. And what are the outputs of this acquire resources process? We have physical resource assignments, which document who's responsible for which resources project team assignments, specifying those roles and responsibilities of each team member, resource calendars, outlining the availability of those resources, and updates to the project management plan and project documents.
Okay, so we've assembled our dream team. Now it's time to mold those individuals into a cohesive, high-performing unit.
That's where Develop Team comes in. We focus on building a cohesive, high-performing team, fostering those relationships, enhancing those skills, and creating that positive and productive work environment.
It's about going beyond just having a group of talented individuals. It's about transforming them into a true team, a unified force that's greater than the sum of its parts. And at Nike, with its emphasis on teamwork, collaboration, and innovation, this process is especially critical.
You're exactly right. At Nike, teamwork is more than just a concept. It's a way of life. So how do we develop a team that's worthy of the Nike swoosh?
What are the key inputs for this developed team process? What factors do we need to consider when creating that winning team?
Well, we start with the project management plan, particularly that resource management plan, which outlines our approach to team development. We also need those project documents like the team charter, which establishes those ground rules and expectations for the project team assignments and the resource calendars. And of course, those enterprise environmental factors and organizational process assets play a crucial role.
We're thinking about Nike's organizational culture, their leadership style, their team building programs, their historical data on successful teams, and their commitment to diversity and inclusion.
Yeah.
All of these factors will influence how we develop the team.
Absolutely. It's about understanding the context, the culture, and the values that shape teamwork at Nike. And to effectively develop the team, we need to use a variety of tools and techniques. We leverage those interpersonal and team skills, active listening, conflict management, emotional intelligence, cultural awareness to build trust and foster collaboration. We provide training to enhance those technical skills or address any knowledge gaps we engage in team building activities to build those relationships and create that sense of camaraderie. We establish ground rules to set those clear expectations for behavior and communication.
So it's not just about throwing people together and hoping for the best. It's about actively shaping the team dynamics, fostering those relationships, and creating an environment where everyone can thrive.
Exactly. And what are the outputs of this develop team process?
I imagine we have team performance assessments, providing insights into how the team is functioning, change requests, if we need to adjust the team structure or resources, and updates to those project documents like the team charter, the lessons learned register, and the project schedule.
You're right. It's about constantly monitoring, evaluating, and adjusting, ensuring that the team is performing at its best.
Okay, so develop team focuses on building that team, but how do we maintain that momentum? How do we keep the team on track, motivated, and focused on achieving those project goals?
That's where manage team comes in this process, is about providing that ongoing leadership support and guidance. It's about tracking team member performance, providing feedback, resolving conflicts, managing those inevitable changes, and optimizing those interactions to enhance team effectiveness. It's about making sure that the team stays cohesive and productive, especially as those deadlines approach and those pressures mount.
And for a Nike creative project with its tight deadlines, high expectations, and demanding stakeholders, this process can be particularly challenging, right?
Mm.
Imagine managing a team of highly creative individuals, each with their own unique style and approach. It's about finding that balance between fostering creativity and maintaining structure.
Absolutely. Managing a creative team is like conducting an orchestra. Each musician bringing their own unique talents and perspectives. You need to allow for those individual expressions while also ensuring that everyone is playing in harmony, working towards a shared goal.
So, what are those tools and techniques that help us effectively manage a creative team, especially in a high pressure environment like Nike?
Well, we have observation and conversation. This involves actively listening to those team members, observing their interactions, and providing that feedback both formally and informally. It's about being present, understanding those team dynamics, and providing guidance and support.
It's about being a coach, not just a manager. It's about fostering those relationships and creating an environment where team members feel comfortable sharing their ideas, their concerns, and their feedback.
You're right. It's about creating that safe space for creativity and innovation. And then we have conflict management. This involves identifying and addressing those conflicts constructively, promoting collaboration and understanding because conflicts are inevitable in any team, especially when you have strong personalities and creative differences.
It's about turning those conflicts into opportunities for growth and innovation. It's about finding those win-win solutions and strengthening those team bonds.
Exactly. And then we have those interpersonal and team skills.
Mhm.
There's essential soft skills, emotional intelligence, influencing motivation, and negotiation to build those relationships, inspire those team members, and navigate those challenging situations. It's about creating a positive and supportive team culture where everyone feels valued, respected, and empowered to contribute their best work.
So it's about leadership, communication, and emotional intelligence.
Mm.
It's about creating that environment where creativity flourishes and those team members can thrive.
Precisely. And we can also use project management information systems to track team performance, monitor progress, and identify any potential issues early on. It's about using those tools to gain those insights and make those data-driven decisions.
Okay, so the key inputs for this managed team process include the project management plan, those work performance reports, team performance assessments, enterprise environmental factors, and those organizational process assets.
Right. And the key outputs are change requests if we need to adjust those team assignments or resources updates to those project documents like the issue log, the lessons learned register, and those resource calendars and work performance information, which provides those insights into the team's performance and any areas for improvement.
Okay, so we've covered the 6 processes in resource management. Plan resource management, estimate activity resources, acquire resources, develop team, and manage team. These processes provide the framework for building those high-performing teams that are essential for success in a creative environment like Nike.
Well said. Now let's dive into the final knowledge area, communications management. This is where we'll be focusing on how we plan, manage, and control that flow of information between the project team and those stakeholders, making sure everyone is informed, engaged, and aligned.
Communication is key for any project, but especially for a Nike creative project, right? With so many stakeholders, high expectations, and the potential for those messages to impact the brand we need to make sure we're communicating effectively and strategically.
Absolutely. It's about crafting those messages carefully, choosing those right channels, and tailoring our approach to those different stakeholder groups. And it all starts with planned communications management, the first process in this group. This is where we establish those communication needs, define our strategies, and develop that communication plan.
Okay, so what are the key inputs that feed into planned communications management? What factors do we need to consider when planning how we'll communicate throughout the project?
Well, as always, we begin with a project charter, which provides an overview of the project and identifies those key stakeholders. We also need to consider the project management plan, especially any existing components like the stakeholder engagement plan or the risk management plan. And of course, those enterprise environmental factors and organizational process assets play a critical role.
We're thinking about Nike's communication policies, their organizational structure, their brand guidelines, their historical data on similar projects, and their preferred communication channels. All these factors will influence how we plan and manage communications for this project.
You're right. It's about understanding Nike's communication culture and making sure our approach aligns with their expectations and their brand values. And to effectively plan communication, we need to use a variety of tools and techniques like communication requirements analysis, which involves identifying the information needs of each stakeholder group communication technology, which includes those tools and platforms we'll use to share information communication models, which provide frameworks for understanding that communication process and communication methods, which determine the format and frequency of those
So
communications.
we're figuring out who needs what information, when they need it, and how we'll deliver it to them, using a mix of channels, formats, and frequencies to reach those different stakeholder groups.
Yeah.
Effectively, it's like creating a communication matrix, mapping out those messages, the channels, and the frequency to ensure that everyone stays informed and engaged.
Exactly. And the key output of this process is the communications management plan. This document outlines how we'll manage communication throughout the project lifecycle. It's our communication roadmap outlining those strategies, responsibilities, and tools for keeping everyone informed and engaged. It's our guide for clear, consistent, and effective communication.
Okay, so we've laid out the essentials for a creative services project manager at Nike to successfully navigate the 49 processes of the PMBOK Guide 7th edition and Agile Practice Guide in a hybrid environment.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We have, but I hope you can see how these tools and techniques can help you deliver those incredible projects,
Right on time, within budget, and to the highest standard.
just like Nike does.
Just do it.
Exactly.